got some problems that you wanna solve? Then let's chat. That job getting on your nerves? Then let's chat. Girl, you know I can relate, so let's chat. Cause I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom.
It's your girl Cece. I'm your hostess with the mostest.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line Is. And today's guest is my friend Jearlean. We go way back. You know, one of her roles, and she wears many hats, was being a fashion model. And that's where her and I connected. But in addition to being a fashion model, she's also a cancer survivor, an author. She's an advocate for the ostomy community. You name it, I think she's done it pretty much at this point. So I am so happy to have her as a guest. And I'm going to let her give a formal introduction to make sure I didn't miss anything, you guys. Okay?
Well, first of all, Sierra, thank you so much.
No problem.
And thank you for hitting that inbox on Facebook and reaching out to me. So I really, really do appreciate that. Again, thank you so much for having me on The Bottom Line Is. And The Bottom Line is Jearlean Taylor from Baltimore, Maryland, reside in West Baltimore. As you said before, I am a cancer survivor. I am a fashion model. I am an author, and I am an advocate in the ostomy and the cancer community. So again, I wear many hats and not complaining at all.
Right. You wear them well. So, and today's episode, and we're going to really hone in on some of those hats that she's wearing. So today's episode is called Thriving and Surviving, because, you know, I think since COVID, I think the whole world has been trying to thrive while surviving and maintaining at this point. So, but she's been doing that way before COVID. So if you could just kind of like take us back and let us know about your journey.
Sure. Now, the title is very, very fitting for me, Thriving and Surviving. So I would say my survivorship actually started at the age of 3 years old. I was outside in the backyard playing with my brothers and my sisters. And my oldest sister noticed that there was blood in my clothes. And that was not, you fall, scrape with a knee, go in a house, put a Band-Aid on it. So I was bleeding 3 years old as though if I had a menstrual.
Wow.
Period. And so, of course, my sister rushed me in the house to my mother and father, immediately rushed me to the hospital. And it was days of testing, x-rays, MRIs, more testing and more testing. Wow. You name it, I had it done. Yeah. And so it was days, and they discovered that I had a rare form of cancer. And this type of cancer, medically, it's called rhabdomyosarcoma. And it's a tumor that starts in like your soft tissue. So it can be anywhere in your body, your head, your neck, your limbs, your bones, your urinary tract area. And so it was discovered that I had a rare form of cancer. And really, they did not expect for me to live. And this type of cancer, it actually is relevant in kids under the age of 15 years old.
Wow.
So just imagine 3 years old. I was too young. Didn't know what was going on, Sierra. I had no idea. But as my older sister recalled to me, my parents, of course, was worried, especially when a doctor come to you and say, we're not sure that your child is going to live.
I know that was a scary time for them.
Right, right. And my parents, both of them are deceased now, but they were Christians. And so they believed in the power of prayer. You know, they're thankful for the doctors, the nurses, everybody. But, you know, they believed in the master physician.
Right.
And so, of course, prayer. And the blessing is a year after my diagnosis and treatments, I was cancer free.
Wow.
So the cancer never came back.
Yes. Knock on wood, people.
Thank you, Lord. But another, I don't know if I want to say tragedy, but another medical circumstances that happened with me because of where the tumors were located in that area. I was forced to have what they call ostomy surgery. And so ostomy surgery is a surgically opening in your body for the discharge of your waste. And so you have to wear ostomy bags for the discharge to empty into. So just imagine at 3 years old. And this was permanent. And if you get ostomy surgery, it is reversible. Mine was not. So from the age of 3 years old till now still, I have ostomy bags. And that's, again, how I use the bathroom. So I mean, just imagine growing up,
Yeah.
just trying to, you're a child, you're 3 years old,
Yeah,
you're trying to
just trying
figure
to
it out, but
understand.
you got to grow up and I want to say you got to accept it, but before you accept it, you got to understand what's going on.
That is true. And when we were modeling, I never
You had
even
no idea,
knew.
right?
Yeah, I was like,
Right?
and then later on, and I was like, oh wow, what's going
Right.
on? I said, oh
Yes.
dang, I said she did good with that. Like, so, but
Yes.
to your point, as a child, I mean, I think we've all had the experience in like elementary school, right? You're trying to find your way,
Yeah.
and kids start asking questions and all
Mhm.
that. Like, how did you deal with that?
I had a hard time dealing with, especially starting school for the first time, because
Yeah.
as I was younger, my parents, mom or dad, changed my bags, right? They knew when to change it. But when you start school, by then you gotta learn how to do it yourself.
Mhm.
And so, listen, Sierra, I had some incidents and accidents in school. The thing is, kids are gonna be kids.
Yes.
Oh, I smell something. I heard she wears a bag.
Mhm.
And I'm being so young, I didn't know how to handle it, right? Barely. I couldn't, honestly, I really didn't know how to explain to them because it was kind of like a secret.
Yeah.
It was my secret. I didn't want to talk about it, did not want to share it.
Mhm.
And so, I can say really at a young age, like my low self-esteem started.
Wow.
Because when you're trying to figure out what's going on, you're growing up, your body changing, but yet and still you have these ostomy bags. Like, how do you cope? And I always question, will I be like this for the rest of my life? Will I be able to live, dream, and do, and swim, and just be around and go outside and play?
What we call normal.
Yes.
The things that we all take for granted,
absolutely.
that it, leads to challenges for you, but, through the grace of God, you've overcome.
Yeah.
So that's awesome story.
And, my parents was a big, oh my gosh, they were always encouraged me. Yeah. Even younger, Jearlean, you're going to be okay. You're normal. When you don't feel normal. Mm-hmm. And so just explain to me you're normal. And of course, praying over me every day. You know what I mean?
Right,
so I needed something that was just going to help me. I'm like, and the thing is, people don't understand unless they're walking in your shoes. Mm-hmm. Even your sibling. I have siblings, my mom and dad, they was there for that support, but y'all don't have bags. Yeah. You know what I mean? You. So my parents played a major part when I was younger. Mm-hmm. Just kept on encouraging me. I still kind of, in school and still kind of stayed to myself, because again, this is my secret, right. Didn't want anyone to know. And so those early years, my parents played a major part.
So at what age or what pivotal moment did you just realize, like, I'm not going to hide who I am. Like, I'm uniquely, great. I'm a blessing. I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I don't care what nobody says.
This is crazy. It wasn't until I was adult. Not doing middle school, because I had a big accident in middle school, which was so embarrassing. High school, I only hung around. I played volleyball in high school, so only hung around them. Right. And so it was not until I was an adult, really, that I started feeling comfortable. And people often ask, well, I mean, when did you start feeling comfortable? When did you come out? And I have to be honest and open. It was not until I made that walk down the aisle at church and accepted Jesus Christ as my personal savior.
Wow. Okay.
That's when it started, because then I was growing spiritually. And so God's like, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. When you start growing in the word, you start listening. Yes. My parents told me when I was younger, you're going to be able to do this and do that. Yeah. But when we young, you go in one ear.
Exactly. It's after you learn it on your own that you're like, oh, I guess they were right.
Right.
All right.
Yes. And so it wasn't then until I start taking my spiritual walk in Christ. And even then I was still having some struggles, but growing in the word, like it gave me inspiration, motivation, and empowerment, and so it actually started then.
And that's when you started thriving.
Okay.
See, like
like how you put that.
Yes. So let me ask you this then. So, with adulthood comes, relationships.
Yes.
So, how did you navigate your, dating life? How did you do all that?
I didn't. So what I was a runner. You know, and guys were interested.
Hold on, was I'm a runner, I'm a track star runner, or
it was a runner, and if anybody get close, I'm running. It was
I love it.
Okay. Sometimes I felt like a track star. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I like boys like me, but you get in a situation where it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to tell them about my situation. You know what I mean? And I was afraid, like I was still learning to love me.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, is somebody else gonna love me? You know? And I struggled with that for a long time until I met someone. You know, I met one. I was more comfortable with myself.
Right.
And we courted. You know, anybody y'all know about courting, not dating, but courting, right?
Yeah,
so old fashioned guy, you know, we courted. And when I felt comfortable, telling him and talking to him, and he made it comfortable for me.
That's
so
important.
He made it comfortable for me. So, courted, dated, got married. Was married. I was married for 14 years.
Wow.
And no reasons medically that we divorced. I do want to make sure people clear about that. He didn't leave or I didn't leave because of my medical situation. That's another show. But you know, and so right. And so got divorced. And so I'm gonna be honest, a little scared getting back out there. You know, start dating again. Yeah. You know, but I thank God for blessing me with my ex for those many years. I mean, we grew together. He learned more about me, my medical, everything. You know, so it was good. It was good.
Yeah, and I, you know, just to kind of hone in on a point, you know, with your situation or other people that have some medical issues too, it's, you know, you kind of think about at what point should you talk to your spouse about these things? Because if you're in that courting stage, you feel like if I say it too early, it might scare them and they run.
They might become
right. Yeah. And it's like they haven't even gotten to know that you know, what you have going on medically does not describe who you are.
Right.
And so just trying to struggle and find that.
You know, it's ironic that you said that because my mom used to always tell me, Jearlean, you're not defined by your circumstances. And then as I was growing and I was like, then it was like, don't judge a book by its cover.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because people can look at me and like had no idea. Like we modeled together. You had like no idea. You know, but I decided to like, my ostomies helped save my life. It really did. But I was determined it was not going to dictate my life. No, I was going to do and be and live and follow my dreams and things like that. And it has not stopped me. God had to say, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you all things are possible. Yeah. And so he just started opening those doors. You know?
No, that, like I said, that's important because I know, you know, it's a lot of people, like I said, out there that, you know, struggle to find that, you know, that way to go about having those hard, difficult conversations. And so they shy away from it. And then sometimes it could, you know, impact somebody else's life,
absolutely.
You know. And so I know it's not this circumstance, but just, you know, holistically speaking. And it's unfortunate. And, you know, that's how you have things that keep duplicating and not in a nice way. You know? So, yeah. So don't be afraid to have that hard conversation. Okay. You might be surprised.
I was about to say, you might be surprised. Oh my God. You're so frazzled and you're thinking, I'm like, girl, calm down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, for sure. So, and I did want to ask you too, was the type of cancer that you had, was it hereditary? Or?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I think, honestly, I was the first person in my family actually diagnosed with cancer. Now, my dad did pass away from a form of cancer, Hodgkin disease.
Okay.
So, like, nothing hereditary at all.
Okay.
No.
Well, I know you said it was rare, but I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like, as far as everything that they have out now. So,
right.
Yeah. So, you know, like you said, the doctor said, oh, she might not live, and you just out here living. So, like, what do you do to maintain a healthy lifestyle and just be positive, really?
You know, I'm like, I think it's also a lot to do with my spiritual walk with Christ, but also a lot of it has to do with like there's people, of course, walking in my shoes,
Mhm.
but I'm also sure people they are going through those emotional. Like I went through depression, I went through some negative thoughts. You know what I mean? I figure if I could tell my story, like that gives me motivation.
Yeah.
If I can share my story with someone, if I can make a difference just for one person, Sierra, right?
Yes.
Then my sickness and everything I went through is not in vain. And I tell people now I'm talking now I can't stop. But I see how it's making a difference, especially for people in the ostomy community. 1.2 million people in this world has ostomy surgery, whether it's permanent or not, and so I'm a big advocate in the ostomy community, because a lot of them, not everyone, but they feel like life is over. People, they don't want to go outside unless it's a medical appointment. They feel like, oh, I can't wear this or I can't wear that. They're going through so much mentally, right?
Yeah.
So I figure if they can see the things that I'm doing, I'm living.
Yeah.
I'm living.
Yeah, you haven't let anything stop you.
Right? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, being an inspiration to other people, that motivates me. Ready to wake up.
Yeah.
Come here on the bottom line is.
I love it. No, so for people, that are going through similar situations, what would be the 3 top tips that you would give them to, if they're struggling with trying to navigate their medical issues in today's society?
One thing that we kind of stray away from is, getting help. Like going to see a therapist.
Yeah.
Listen, Christ is prevalent in my life. He is my master physician, but he sends help our way.
Exactly.
And so, I believe in going to get a therapist. I didn't have one when I was younger. I didn't. And I talk to a lot of people now, but, go get help. If you need help, don't be afraid, to reach out. And always go back to not allowing your circumstances to dictate your future.
Yeah.
That's another thing. And another thing is do something, get back to what you used to do before a sickness happened. Like if you was a runner, if you like to go back running. If you was like to knit, go back to that. If you was a person that, I like to swim, go back to those things, right?
That make you happy.
That make you happy.
Yeah.
Those are the things that make you happy. And when I got into modeling, I was like, oh, okay. And I got into modeling kind of for the not wrong reasons, but I was dealing with some self-esteem issues. And I figured, okay, maybe I can try it and see.
Right.
And it did help my self-esteem. So find that thing that will bring you back to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, my grandmother, who I took care of before she passed, Nana, when she stopped walking, she got depressed.
Yes.
She thought life was over.
Yeah,
and, we immediately, our brains, for whatever reason, we go right to the negative. And I made it my goal to let her know that just because you can't walk, I'm still going to take you to wherever you need to go. You still can go to church. You still can do this. You still can do that. And you're going to do it.
Right.
So we getting out this house more than a doctor's appointment. So, and it was very important, because I think that, she didn't think that could still happen, and just showing her that, and it brought that joy, back to her life, being able to do some of the things.
To talking that, what you did, you gave her support. And that's another thing, support, we have support from our family and our friends, but maybe for me, I belong to a lot of support groups, ostomy support groups, and so finding that support in your community per se. Right. We get you supported her. Right. And so it's there,
Yeah. And I think that some people, downplay support groups. I feel like, back in the day, a support group would mean AA.
Right.
It's like, no, there is almost a support group almost for everything. Like,
oh my gosh. Yes.
I feel like if you want to be happy, it's a support group.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's something.
Yes.
And so, I mean, you can find, people that feel the same way that you do and go through the same things, because that makes you feel comfortable too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, although your family wants to support you, they might not truly understand what you're going through, and they, they love you and they want to help you out, but it's only their understanding can only go so far. So it's very important to, talk the talk, I guess, with people that walk the same walk as you.
Definitely agree.
And so,
Definitely agree.
Put that saying off there. Look, And that kind of leads me into my next point about, the stigmas that are out there and misconceptions about people going through, lifelong illnesses.
Yeah.
And so,
But see, I think, with stigma, what you have to do with that, and we have a lot in the ostomy community, then you have to throw in education, right? Because you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so you immediately, you put that stigma on there. But I believe in just educating. Like we talked about dating, right? People think with an ostomy you can't date. I mean, that's a stigma. You know what I mean? And so I think education is important.
Okay.
You've been through it,
right?
And if you don't know, then resources. Yeah. You can do resources.
Google and AI is your best friend.
Google is my best friend.
Yeah, mine too. That AI, ChatGPT.
Yeah, but you got to educate people.
Yeah.
Because we're like, what is an ostomy? I mean, what is that? Because a lot of people are affiliated with people who have, gun violence.
Yeah.
You're in a wheelchair. They wear a bag, but I mean, you get ostomy surgery for many medical reasons.
Right.
So a lot of it, you have to educate people.
Yeah, and I feel like I said, don't go from 0 to 100, and being negative about it because, like although it's lifelong, that's your purpose is to go out here and be that advocate and be that educator, and that motivator for people because, that's what you were designed to do.
Yeah. And I think you also got to prepare yourself for rejection.
Yeah.
Again, with the dating, but not just with dating, but just in general. Because people, again, they don't understand. They have that stigma. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, how do you prepare yourself for rejection, right? But I think with that, you just got to know who you are.
Yeah.
Whether you're sick or not. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you deal with friendships?
I've always had good friendships. I think it started with the neighborhood children.
Yeah.
Growing up, oh my gosh,
listen.
Oh my gosh, and they knew, but I don't think they quite understood. But back then, it really didn't matter. They were like, "Watch out for Jearlean. Don't hit in her stomach. Jearlean, sit down." I was like, "Oh no, I want to play with y'all." You know what I mean?
Right.
But back then, the neighborhoods were so different.
Yes,
they were so different back then.
Now.
We playing run up and down Cops, Tin Can Alley. You know what I mean? All of those games that brought us together. And just out. Just in my old community, we were like family. We were like family. So I never had any problems like with friends. I had friends in the neighborhood, and a few of my girlfriends that I'm still best friends with, like growing up, they didn't even know. Yeah. They had no idea.
Because it's not like you go out there and say, "Hey, you guys, like I have ostomy."
Right,
like,
exactly. So it was so genuine.
Right, and that means a lot.
Yeah, it means a lot. It was it was so different back then. Yeah.
Man, I tell people all the time, if we can go back to the 90s.
What?
I'll just take the 90s. We don't want to take anything else.
Right.
The 90s. Music, everything.
Yes.
The
Oh
vibes,
my goch. Yeah.
Bring all the family back from the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
And just keep it there.
Yeah.
I don't mind living the same day over.
Right.
I'm like, that's fine.
Yes.
That is completely fine with me. So, but just to kind of close out, I mean, what other words of encouragement would you give to people?
We always say this thing, we've been saying it lately, that life be lifing.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's okay.
Right.
Life is gonna life. We can't predict everything that happens. Life is gonna happen, right? But it's all how you handle what is thrown at you, you know? And so I just said, let life, right?
Yes.
But find that thing that's going to give you joy, that's going to give you motivation, that's going to give you inspiration. And I always go back to this, and I tell people, and we've said it here, I've said it here several times here, that what you go through does not dictate who you are and what you can be.
Right.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Now, if people have any, additional questions or want to learn more about your story in more detail, how can they get in touch with you?
Listen, everything is on the website. So it's JearleanTaylor.com. So you can read so much on the website. You know, I'm an author. You can get the book there. I have a documentary. You can see the documentary there. So everything is on the website. Again, www.JearleanTaylor.com.
And that'll be down here below as well. And what's the name of your book?
Pretty Girl Blues.
Okay. And what, if you mind sharing, what's that about?
Yeah, so it really, the title speaks to itself. Pretty girl, you know, pretty girl on the outside, but on the inside, you feel so blue. You know, when you think of blue, you think of sadness. You think of, you know, and so I found my pretty girl. I would say that.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, you know, with that, I'll leave you all with, you know, the bottom line is, you know, allow yourself, again, grace. I think I've said this for quite a few episodes that, you know, don't let your situation define you. You define the situation, and, you know, just got to be resilient, because everything happens for a reason. We might not understand the reason at that time, because we might not understand our purpose, but through our journey, I think that'll become more clear. So again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Yes.
Good conversation. Good, y'all.
Yes. And we will see you next time.